Right troops, today we are going to talk Balrogs. A wee bit of history, then I'll show you how I converted and painted up mine. So you may be asking, why in God's green Middle Earth do I need so many Balrogs? Well, one day I plan on building and painting the Fall of Gondolin, but that's going to be a while off, or even the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. But first things first, a quick intro. So, a brief history. Balrogs are corrupted Maiar, so the same level as Gandalf or Sauron. In Tolkien's earlier work, he had around 1,000 of them, but they weren't as powerful. In the first draft of Fall of Gondolin, for instance, many were killed by Tuor and Ecthelion. However, Tolkien changed his mind, as he often did, and made them much more powerful, and said there would only ever have been between 3 and 7. Only 2 were ever named, Gothmog and Durin's Bane, which we all know. Don't hate me, but I sit on the fence when it comes to the wings versus no wings debate. I like to think all the Balrogs had their own different individual features. There have been many different representations of them over the years, whether that's in the films or different artworks, and I want to try and convert up a few of them. I'm intrigued by this one's design, as it's very different, but I'm not sure how I would do it. Perhaps a Catan model, but it would probably be a lot of work. The new avatar has me thinking as well. So, I'm going to aim for about 5, including Gothmog, because any more than that would probably be a bit silly.
Of course, 3 isn't silly enough as it is.
So this all started when I came across Minatures Infernal Range. I thought the models just screamed Balrog, and I had to pick up a few. Gothmog, anyone. So I picked up the 2 I liked the most in a sale and got to work. So as you can see, I'd already built the body a while ago, but I kind of gave up because I couldn't get the axe and the arms to fit on. I'm not sure why Mears have decided to sculpt these Minotaurs with a full-on cock and balls, but we'll need to censor that for YouTube. Also, I'll quickly show you how I made these rocks for the base. I picked up these rock moulds from Woodland Scenics. All we need to do is thoroughly mix some plaster with water, pour it into the mould. Make sure and be careful with this so you don't get it everywhere like I did. Then it's only the most satisfying bit left, which is to pop out all the rocks. I just winged it and I don't think I got the recipe right, so I would make sure and check what ratio of plaster you need, as these rocks haven't come out that great. So for the tail, Ross swapped me his spare Balrog whip for a Subway sandwich, so thank you very much, Ross.
Eat fresh? Eat fresh? Eat fresh. That's my man!
Wow, did you know Greendale students are technically in the Army Reserves? Let's say a little prayer for peace.
I've got these flame parts for the back of the Balrog's neck. I believe these are from the original Balrog kit. They're used on the base, but I'm going to repurpose them for the flame down the back. So I've got a set of wings, but I think they're a bit too small, so I'm going to leave them off. So first thing I want to do is get the flame down the back fixed on. I need to cut this in half so it kind of flows around the back a bit better, and we'll need to fill in the gaps with green stuff. The knife wasn't working when I tried to cut it, so it's time to get something a bit more substantial. So time to mix up some green stuff. I then changed my mind and realised I need to put the arms on first to make things easier. I added some green stuff to the joints to make it easier to stick the arms on. I did manage to snap the axe while doing this, but it's an easy fix with some super glue. I then used my sculpting tool to blend the arms together in a seamless manner. Once that was done, I put a bit of super glue in the joints to strengthen the bond. I did use my knife to kind of score the green stuff to make it look a bit more like the skin. So with the arms done, it was back to the flames going down the back of the Balrog. I used some green stuff as a base to squash the flames onto. I then used my rubber sculpting tool to kind of push this in and make it a bit more of a seamless join. So while that was curing, I decided to work on the tail a bit. I cut the whip just below the hand to create a tail-like feature. I'm going to save the hand in case I need it for any Balrogs in the future. I then cut off the extra whips that I didn't want. I made sure to make it different to the other Balrog I have. I then trimmed off the excess with my clippers and knife, before finally filing down the edges. So with the tail done, all I did was put a little bit of green stuff in the hole where the tail was going to go, and squished the tail in. I then poured in some super glue to harden the join. Any excess green stuff I just put on the base to create some undulation. So with that, the only thing left to do is to fix the gap between the flames on the back of the Balrog. Again, I just squish in some green stuff to try and fill in the gap first of all. Once the gap is filled, I add in a little bit more to try and create some more flame-like texture. I'm not the best with green stuff, but I just tried to do some wavy lines to make it look like fire. Again, it doesn't need to be neat, as long as it just fills in the gap and when it's painted up it looks good, that's all that matters. I used a number of different tools to create these flame-like pattern. Again, excess on the base. Apologies, I forgot to take a video, but this picture shows what we have so far. So it's off to give this miniature a black base coat.
Oh well. Maybe we won't be doing any base coating. Finally got a bit of sun. Got the bottom, it's still a bit sunny, I missed bits. You give it a wee second coat, just touch up the areas I missed. We're all good.
It's not showing up well in the light, apologies, but I have given the whole miniature a dry brush of storm vermin fur. I didn't include the armour in this, that is left completely black. Then give everything a wash of Nuln Oil. I then proceed to do lighter and lighter dry brushes of grey by mixing in white into the storm vermin fur. Following my faces and bases advice, I've made sure the face is 1 grade lighter than the rest of the miniature to draw attention. I then want to tone down the black straps on the miniature, so give them a couple of coats of Nuln Oil until you're happy. This just creates a bit of contrast between the leather and the skin. Just be careful, I managed to break his horn off in this process.
Yeah.
But then I need to talk about fire. I find this incredibly hard to paint because it's almost a bit of a brain melt.
If you'll pardon the pun.
The hottest part of the fire is the inner bit, and the coldest part is the outer bit. Which means you need to highlight in the opposite way to normal. As you can see, Games Workshop's Balrog is incorrect. They've done the hottest part of the fire being yellow and on the outside, and red in the middle where that should be the coldest. A while since I did the other Balrogs, so I had to get my head around this again. And what I ended up deciding to do was to start by creating a gradient across the whole fire, from a bright yellowy white all the way down to a deep red. I then apply an orange wash as just the kind of mid-tone across it, just to blend the different layers together.
Basically guys, I was just going to do a little bit of Nuln Oil on the metal buckles. They should name me BP for the amount of fucking oil spills I do, man. Oh well guys, waste not, want not. I'm actually gonna... I've done it again. I was just trying to put the lid on it and I spilt it again.
So anyway, back to the fire. I want to get a really bright white and yellow colour. Just tap it along the bottom of the flame. Remember, we need to highlight in the opposite way to normal. So the recesses are going to be the brighter colour and the areas you would normally highlight are going to be the darker colour. As you can see, I'm bringing the red down over the bright white part. The outer part of the fire is colder. But it gets complicated because the higher up the flame you go, the red is the hotter colour and the deep red and black is the colder colour. So you need to switch and fill in the recesses with the red. You guys might find this easy, but it took me forever to get my brain into gear to figure this out. I then go back with a really thin brush and highlight the deepest recesses higher up with a bit of yellow, before finishing it off with black on the tips of the flames and some of the more protruding flickers, or whatever they're called. There's probably a much easier way to do this, but my brain just couldn't figure it out, so this is what we were left with, I'm afraid. It's definitely not as good as my first one. I think I may have not used enough of the brighter colours in this, but I can always go back and fix that another time. So for the armour, I wanted it to be a completely black obsidian type substance with a nice like red glowing trim. But to achieve this, the main portion of the armour, i.e. the inside, was left completely black. So for the trim, I started with a really deep corn red. This should give a good base coat covering. I slowly built up through Evil Sun's Scarlet, Wild Rider Red, Troll Slayer Orange, and then for the final kind of sharpest tips of the armour, I went with Yellow again, or mixing in some white for the sharpest tips. I had an idea to do the obsidian based substance differently. I'm just going to leave it completely black and not rely on paint to highlight it, but a really shiny gloss varnish that will reflect the light, hopefully making it look like some kind of obsidian. Obsidian.
Obsidian. Again, I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say obsidian one more goddamn time.
Anyway, before we apply the hard coat, let's move on to the axe. I was stuck on the axe for a few days. I really couldn't think what to do, so I went to Google for some inspiration. Can I do that? No idea how to do that. Oh wow, look at that. Oof. It's seriously not metallics. How the hell have they done that? I really need to step map on my game, man. Look at these. These are insane. Look at that. Oh well, I don't think I have a clue how to do any of these, so it's time to load up our Lord and Saviour. Duncan Roads, here we go.
If you're collecting an evil army, no doubt sooner or later you're going to want to paint a really
Duncan.
impressive looking bladed weapon in the hands of your commander.
Yes.
So in this video we're going to show you a fantastic method of doing this for a really cool hellish looking blade effect.
I think we found our technique that I might be able to replicate. We'll give it a bash. Basically it involves Lamian medium and it's all about slowly building up layers to make this Hellforged effect. We start with Evil Sun's Scarlet and we give it about 5 layers. We move closer and closer to the edge of the blade. Try to go to opposite sides of the blade to build up this effect. Next we repeat this with Troll Slayer Orange, except we don't go as far down the blade as we did with the red. I had a wee look to compare mine to Duncan's and it doesn't look like it has worked that well. Mine's really shiny and gloopy, but if I crack on and get to the stage where I'm edge highlighting, hopefully it brings it all together. So then on to the same technique with the yellow, but this time much closer to the edges of the blades. Mine was really shiny and glossy, unlike Duncan's, so I decided to give it a Cassandora yellow wash to kind of bring the tones together. Then we're finally on to the edge highlighting with the Uriel yellow. You need a very steady hand for this, so be careful when you're doing it. It's starting to come together now, but there's still something a little bit missing, so I'm going to mix in some white to give it an even stronger edge highlight. Be careful when you do this so you don't accidentally destroy all your hard work.
Oh! Oh no! Oh, you fucking idiot, John.
Well, this means you'll have to be invited.
Oh no! Ah, shit!
I then went back to the corn red to fix any mistakes that I'd made. I didn't actually paint the underside of the axe to save time. I wanted to add something a bit different, so I took some black on a sponge and dotted it on the axe to give it a kind of volcanic effect. Then gave the miniature the usual brown base rim and look APS scenics. With the miniature being entirely black and orange, we need a bit of contrast, which is why I'm going to use some vibrant green basing tufts, just to give something else for the eye to look at, as without it the miniature would be pretty monotone. I'm a bit worried about this hard coat as the ball bearing I put in it to mix it is rusted into it. Hopefully this doesn't have any negative effects because I really want to finish this miniature, so I'm just going to go for it. This also means I can tick off my hobby bingo for a new technique learned. And with the hard coat applied, I think that's us done, so let's move on to some final shots. So in the end, I'm pretty happy with how all these turned out. I was really worried about the axe, but now that I've done it, I can't stop staring at it, so I think the techniques work quite well. But let me know in the comment section what Balrog would you like to see next. Maybe an ice Balrog, my Empire Wizard friend here. Or perhaps even trying to turn the Khitan into that weird looking Balrog in the art. Thanks for watching everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to give my bell a good old ring.
Wow.
Meh. Man, I'm even more ginger than I already was, man. Woohoo!
That's fucking Oh! Oh no!
Why did I film this in 4K? It's just so slow. It keeps crashing every 5 minutes, man. I also think I've been rendering my videos wrong this entire time, and that's why they've been looking like they're 720p. What a fucking pie, man. Oh, it's crashed. It's crashed again. Oh no. Oh, this has gone horribly wrong. Oh. Jesus Christ. Alright, mate. What are you saying? Oh. Fucking zoo in here, man.